Have you ever left a conversation thinking, I think that person wasn't being completely honest with me? Nothing obvious happened. They smiled. They nodded. They said everything was fine, but something about their reaction didn't match their words. Most people ignore that feeling. They assume they're overthinking. But psychology research suggests something interesting. Our brains often notice tiny emotional signals before people manage to control them. In other words, during a conversation, two things are happening at the same time. The words people choose, and the reactions their body shows before those words are fully controlled. Small facial movements, subtle changes in posture. Most of these signals last less than a second. But once you start noticing them, everyday conversations begin to reveal much more than they seem. In this video, we'll look at 7 psychological signals researchers have studied that can reveal how people are actually feeling in a moment. Not by guessing their thoughts, but by paying attention to signals your brain may already be detecting. Let's start with one of the most fascinating discoveries in emotion research. Number 1, microexpressions. The most honest reaction in a conversation often happens before a person even realizes it. Imagine this moment. You share an idea in a meeting. A coworker immediately says, "Yeah, that sounds good." But for a split second before the smile appears, something flashes across their face. Maybe their eyebrows tighten, maybe their lips press together. Then the polite expression returns. That reaction may have lasted less than a fraction of a second, but your brain noticed it. Psychologist Paul Ekman spent decades studying facial expressions across different cultures. His research found that genuine emotional reactions can appear on the face extremely quickly, sometimes around 1/25th of a second, before people consciously regulate them. These brief reactions are known as micro-expressions. They don't necessarily mean someone is lying, but they can reveal the person's first emotional reaction before social filtering happens. The face reacts first. The words follow. Number 2, eye gaze and cognitive load. Many people believe that when someone looks away while answering a question, they must be hiding something. But psychology research shows a different explanation. Imagine someone asking you a difficult question. Why do you think that strategy failed last quarter? Most people instinctively look away while thinking, not because they're avoiding the person, but because the brain is concentrating. Researchers studying cognitive load and eye gaze found that people often break eye contact when solving complex problems. Looking directly at someone requires social processing. Looking away frees up mental resources. Studies by Glenberg, Schroeder, and Robertson showed that people frequently avert their gaze when they need more cognitive effort. So when someone looks away while answering, it often means something simple. Their brain is working harder. Number 3, self-touch gestures during stress. Here's another signal that appears in uncomfortable moments. Small self-touch movements. Imagine someone being asked a difficult question. They pause. Then they lightly touch their face. Maybe they rub their nose. Maybe they scratch their neck. Maybe they briefly cover their mouth. These gestures are known as self-soothing behaviors. In research on nonverbal behavior, psychologist Aldert Vrij describes these movements as ways the body regulates internal tension. When people feel psychological stress or uncertainty, the nervous system often triggers small, comforting behaviors. Touching the face, rubbing the hands, adjusting clothing. These gestures don't prove someone is lying, but they can signal that the person is experiencing stress in that moment. Number 4, body orientation. Sometimes the body reveals a person's intentions before their words do. Imagine speaking with someone at a party. Their shoulders face you. Their feet point toward the conversation. Their posture leans slightly forward. Now imagine the same conversation, but their body turns slightly toward the door. Their feet angle toward another group. Even if they're still speaking politely, their body may already be preparing to leave. Anthropologist Edward T. Hall studied how humans use space and body orientation in social interaction. His research in proxemics showed that body direction often reflects comfort and social intention. When people feel engaged, their body naturally faces the interaction. When attention starts drifting elsewhere, orientation shifts subtly. And once you start noticing these signals, micro-expressions, gaze shifts, self-touch gestures, and body orientation, you begin to realize something surprising. A large part of human communication happens before a sentence even finishes. Not through dramatic signals, but through tiny reactions that appear automatically. Number 5, the Duchenne smile. One of the easiest signals to misunderstand in a conversation is a smile. Imagine meeting someone for the first time. They smile politely. The corners of their mouth lift, but something about it feels slightly incomplete. You can't explain exactly why. It just doesn't feel fully warm. More than a century ago, a French neurologist named Guillaume Duchenne studied the muscles involved in smiling. He discovered something fascinating. A genuine smile activates 2 different groups of muscles. One lifts the corners of the mouth, the other activates the muscles around the eyes. When people experience real enjoyment, their eyes narrow slightly and small wrinkles appear at the outer corners. This is called a Duchenne smile. But a polite social smile often uses only the mouth. The eyes remain mostly unchanged. Later research by psychologist Paul Ekman confirmed this difference across cultures. That's why people often sense the difference between a warm smile and a polite one, even if they can't explain it. The eyes often reveal the emotion that the mouth is trying to imitate. Number 6, behavioral mirroring. Here's something you've probably experienced without noticing. You're sitting with someone in a cafe. You lean forward slightly while talking. A few seconds later, they lean forward too. You pick up your drink. Moments later, they pick up theirs. Most people assume this is coincidence, but psychologists discovered something interesting. Researchers Tanya Chartrand and John Bargh found that people often unconsciously imitate the behavior of those they feel comfortable with. They called this phenomenon the chameleon effect. When people feel socially connected, their bodies begin to mirror each other automatically. Posture, gestures, speaking rhythm, even facial expressions. This mirroring helps build rapport and social connection. That's why conversations with close friends often feel effortless. Your bodies are quietly synchronizing with each other. And when mirroring disappears completely, it can sometimes signal emotional distance. Number 7, the freeze response. The final signal appears in a moment of sudden stillness. Imagine someone hearing unexpected news, something surprising, something uncomfortable. For a brief moment, their body stops moving. Their hands pause, their posture stiffens, they become completely still for a second. This reaction is known as the freeze response. When the brain detects something important or potentially threatening, it activates one of 3 survival responses: fight, flight, or freeze. Researchers studying defensive behavior, including work by neuroscientist Michael Fanselo, have found that freezing is often the brain's first reaction to unexpected information. It allows the brain to pause movement and quickly process what just happened. In everyday social interactions, this can appear as a brief moment of stillness, a pause in gestures, a sudden quiet second while the brain evaluates the situation. It may last only a moment, but it often reveals that something emotionally significant just happened in that person's mind. Bringing it all together. When you put all of these signals together, a clearer picture begins to emerge. Micro expressions, eye gaze during difficult thinking, self-soothing gestures under stress, body orientation in conversation, the difference between polite smiles and genuine ones, unconscious mirroring between people who feel comfortable together, and the brief freeze response when something unexpected appears. None of these signals alone tells you exactly what someone is thinking. Human behavior is always more complex than that, but together they reveal something important. The body often reacts before the words do. And once you start noticing these signals, everyday conversations begin to feel much easier to understand. Not because you're analyzing everyone around you, but because you're paying attention to patterns that were always there. If you enjoy exploring the psychology behind everyday human behavior, consider subscribing to the channel. And I'm curious about something. Have you ever noticed one of these signals in a real conversation? A smile that didn't reach the eyes, 2 people unconsciously copying each other's movements, or someone suddenly freezing after hearing unexpected news. What was the moment that made you notice? Let me know in the comments.